had in the dealership was that of a sales manager, because I was responsible for people for the first time within this environment. I was responsible for developing those that were underneath me. I was responsible for a whole lot of other things, right? Desking deals, trades, TOs, negotiating, you name it. Those were the fast and furious days. And so for me, that position was so critically important, because it was there I realized that there was something wrong with this picture. I felt like I was always on a treadmill, always running, always putting out fires. Couldn't understand exactly why it was that I didn't feel like I had any control over what was happening to the business on a daily basis. I came to work early, I left very late. And during that day, very little proactive things took place from the perspective of driving business in, besides hounding the salespeople, right? And I couldn't give them anything to do. This book was written because I stepped away from the table to understand what was wrong with this business model, from the perspective that it's a 100-year-old business, yet we've been doing things the same way this whole time, for the most part. And I stepped away to understand exactly what was wrong, what was broken, and to provide answers and a strategy that would cause your life to be much better if you understand that there are strategies out there that, if you had both hands on them, will make a whole difference in the way that you look at your job and the quality of life you begin to enjoy. One of the key things I wanted to actually do was to be able to identify. I wanted to know exactly why it is that salespeople were struggling, what they were struggling with, and how could I do something about it. I hated having salespeople come to me and ask me questions about how they could become better, and me not having something to give them. So one of the first guys I ran into as I started to dig into my research, as I call it, I wanted to know what was wrong, right? And so as I kept reading, studying, I came across a guy by the name of Edward Deming. And this guy is responsible for turning around Japan after World War II. Now, Deming taught me a lot. And the reason why he taught me a lot is because he exposed me to the importance, right, of putting strategies in place that would produce results that are predictable, repeatable, and trackable. And he not only utilized this approach, right? They call it the Deming process, but this approach in Japan, but when Ford Motor Company had issues back in the 50s, they brought him back to this country to fix their problems. And so the reality of this whole equation is that we have never taken a very structured approach to the sales process within the dealerships. And I think it's time we change some things. Because you see, the rest of the world, right? Corporate America has been benefiting. Manufacturing has been benefiting from an organized approach to creating products, an organized approach to creating products that are much more reliable. And it has been my experience that when you harness a well thought out strategy that has proven to produce results that are predictable, repeatable, and trackable, you are able to steer your ship a lot more comprehensively than ever before. I wrote this book, Lessons from the Concrete Garden, specifically for me to be somewhat of a cathartic exercise, in that I was able to bleed out on paper and to share from the heart what I thought, based on research, based on the interpretation of my research, was the reason that salespeople struggle and what we could do about it. Because when I came to the industry, there was nothing in place to teach me what I need to know how to do to succeed. The fact remains that there are so many differences that each of us as individuals bring to the table that it's baffling to me that because of those unique differences, those unique experiences that we bring to the table, there isn't an actual vetting process that we utilize to corral all these applicants into, and then provide them with the core knowledge they need to do their jobs, and then allow them to move forward into our business. And here's why. In the absence of some type of vetting process, some standardized requirements that the individual needs to know to succeed as a professional in this space, each person is coming to the table with a unique perspective. I was a chef by training. My counterpart was a attorney. The other gentleman was a car wash specialist and something of that sort. We all come from different backgrounds, right? But regardless of where we come from, we come to the applicant spot, we apply for the job, and then they give us the road to the sale. And then from the road to the sale, we're dealing with clients. And so each person is utilizing their own unique perspective, their own unique experiences to interpret what each step of that sale is telling them to do. That's not bad. Here's what's bad. We get upset with them when we find them standing around, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, asking them, why is it that you're not on the phone talking to someone? Go do something. Go get something, right? Here's a question that I wish someone would have asked me back then. What do you want me to do if you haven't taught me how to do anything else? One of the most difficult things that I wrestled with as a salesperson was standing there every single day trying to figure out what it was that I was supposed to be doing, because my training taught me how to stand around. I learned how to wait for the clients to come, and then I would be able to act. Everything I was taught focused around me being reactive. And what I mean by me being reactive is that when you teach someone the road to the sale, you teach them the meet and greet, and you teach them how to ask the qualifying questions, and you do the walk around and so forth. Think about it for a second. Every bit of that, those action steps are focused around the individual specifically working with the client that's in front of them. Here's the question that no one wants to answer for me, and I've been trying to get it answered. What is it that salesperson is supposed to do if no one shows up? The downside to being a sales manager, a management professional in this business model, is that we lack support. And don't get mad at me, but it's true. Let me explain. We lack support from the perspective that because we don't have a prerequisite to becoming this management professional, the actual solid core training, right, that would allow us to be effective in the role, we make stuff up. We make stuff up all the time. But here's what's even worse. We have a job that is fast-paced, right? We're constantly on the move. So there is no time, I would admit, for us to get off this train, to analyze what's wrong, and to develop strategies to fix it. And so because you have vendors that are providing you with what they say is the hot thing at the moment, there's so much confusion with what is real strategy and process that you can use and what is not. And sometimes probably the best thing you can do is just stick your head into the hole, right? And just say enough for now, right? I'm in overload. But here's the problem. Even amongst our peers, we talk to each other about, hey, I'm struggling with this. What are you doing? And that guy's saying, I'm struggling too. What are you doing? And so the blind can't lead the blind. And so for me, the real value in creating a content or a body of work such as this is that it allows the management professional to, within a very short period of time, get a grasp as to what the 10,000 feet view is of what they're dealing with, and then to understand exactly what it really takes to make those things right. Okay, so if you get that 10,000 feet view, not only do you see what's wrong, not only are you able to understand what the strategies are you need to acquire, implement, right, execute, but you also get a different perspective. And this book is about getting perspective, because the current one you have right now is one-sided. You need a 360-degree view based on what's currently happening in your business. And I believe this book will give you a different perspective that I think you can use. I couldn't find anyone who could help me to understand what to do about the people that kept going through my store like a revolving door. And there was no program that would allow me to ask them or teach them anything different. Does that make any sense? I couldn't teach them anything different from what I was taught. And there was the reason for me to step away from the table, to finally figure out what can we do differently about these people who are in our charge in order to help them to succeed. What was it that I could offer them as a strategy that I could quantify, teach, and then monitor and manage that process that I could give my people to help them succeed? In most cases, most of us were never exposed to standards. What are standards, right? The best way I can describe a standard is a benchmark. And in our particular cases, we never really established any other standard outside of the road to the sale. That is the standard for how you communicate and interact with a prospect while within the dealership. Here's what's cool. If you understand that every salesperson needs to know the road to the sale to work with a client within the dealership, look at that approach, the framework of that process. Step 1, meet. Step 2, greet. Step 3, asking, so forth. Go down the line. We know it ends with the delivery, right? What if you had standards that you knew were the best practice for generating leads, and you can teach that to your people? What about a standard for leveraging CRM software, customer relationship management, communicating with clients more effectively? What about a standard for dressing effectively for work? The best attire that your professional could wear that would attract a customer. What about the standard for networking with other business professionals? What about a standard for interacting with businesses outside the dealership to bring customers in volume to the store? If you had access to the best practices that you could teach your people and then utilize those best practices as the process that you manage, you would be able to see if they're doing it wrong and be able to correct them, correct? In the absence of that best practice or standard, you're left guessing, why is it that everyone's standing around? And what do I do about it? No matter what you teach your salespeople, unless you provide them with the standards, the core knowledge they need to succeed, they will always utilize their own personal experience to execute these activities. And that's why they're meeting with varied results. Just like those monitors, right? The P-wave monitors on the when you see someone in the hospital, beep, 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 up and down, because they're all trying to figure it out. They're winging it. The key thing I want you to walk away with from this book, this body of work, is that we all come from different places. And each of us, once we come to this place, historically we've been given one set of instruction for how to do things. That instruction has not been bad, but it has been the reason why the results that we've been getting has looked something like this, right? And if you understand that in the absence of standards, that you teach someone the things that they need to know to do their jobs, you're going to continue to get this. It's important that you get a hold of the fact that education is the key to your future. Education from the perspective that it's not about the road to the sale. It's about the strategies, the skills, the systems, and the processes that the individual uses to not just get the client to the front door and not just work with them while they're in the dealership, but also work with them after they leave and bring them all the way back to here. It's the activities that they engage in outside of the dealership as well as in, because you're always selling, right? The reality of it is that as a management professional, our job is to manage process, not manage people. And if you understand the importance of looking at each of the strategy that your people leverage or engage in to do their work as something that you manage and not the person, then everything about your future is about to become brighter.